Over the past few weeks, I was going through some YouTube videos talking about Pokemon Sword and Shield before the games released in November 2019. Well, considering how much I procrastinated on this video, it's actually been a couple of months since then. And a general theme I encountered in said videos can be summed up in one word: potential. Look, I know Sword and Shield's pre-release period was loaded with controversies ranging from Dexit all the way to people whining about a fucking tree. That's right, I'm calling you people out. You cried about a tree looking bad, and this is what happened to my Diamond and Pearl remix. Anyway, saltiness aside though, back in 2019, I and many others like myself genuinely felt that these games had quite the potential to be great Pokemon games. And once the games finally did come out, my opinion on them was that they were good games, but they failed to meet all their potential. One of the areas where these games were severely lacking was in the story. Actually, not so much in the story, but rather in the storytelling. It's one thing to have a good story, but it's a completely different thing to tell that story in a convincing way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not implying that Pokemon Sword and Shield had a great story to begin with. All I'm saying is storytelling can make or break a story. And one character that personifies that exact problem with Sword and Shield's story is the Galar Pokemon League chairman and president of Macrocosmos, Chairman Rose. Chairman Rose to me is an embodiment of poor storytelling and rushed character development, but also an embodiment of immense potential, much like Pokemon Sword and Shield themselves. Potential that was never fully realized. In my opinion, this man had the potential to be the single greatest villain in any main series Pokemon game, but failed miserably at that. Before I started working on this video, I wanted to know what the general opinion on Chairman Rose was. So after some intense research, and by that I mean reading a couple of Reddit posts, I quickly realized that people really dislike this character. Although I'd be lying if I said I was surprised at all. Contrary to popular opinion, I don't think Chairman Rose is inherently a bad character. Like I said, I feel he's a character who failed due to lack of proper polish and poor storytelling. And that Rose had the potential to be probably the greatest villain in any main series Pokemon game. Even before we get into his motives as the antagonist, Rose was set up to be an extremely significant character right from the beginning of Pokemon Sword and Shield. Chairman Rose is the first character you meet in these games. In fact, he's the first and only non-professor character to introduce the player to a main series Pokemon game. That's already a huge deal. He's also credited as the man largely responsible for making the Galar League as popular as it is by incorporating Dynamax into the battles. And he's even responsible for providing the region with its energy. From the beginning of your adventure, you sort of look up to him. Although it's Leon whose path the player is following, it's Rose who created that path. He's the one who made the Galar League what it is today. Given that exposition, it's obvious that Game Freak was quite ambitious with this antagonist, setting up his character right from the beginning. This is one of the reasons why I really wanted to like Chairman Rose. He's also the first antagonist in the mainline Pokemon games who could have been an effective anti-villain. For one, Rose is probably the most realistic and noble goal out of any villain in the main series Pokemon game. That goal being to revive Eternatus, a Pokemon that can provide the Galar region with a near infinite supply of energy, in order to avoid a predicted energy crisis in the future. For the sake of my argument, let's conveniently forget the fact that Eternatus almost destroyed the region 3000 years in the past. Just for now though, I swear I'll get back to it. This goal works because exhaustion of energy resources is a concern that we face in the real world too. It gives a sense of reality to the plot of these games. There are, however, two inherent flaws with Rose's goals. One being that there's no tangible sense of this predicted energy crisis in the world of these games. And second, the aforementioned energy crisis is predicted to occur 1,000 years in the future. Neither of these problems is too severe by itself, but when they're combined with poor execution, it makes it difficult for anyone to get behind Rose's motives. Why does Chairman Rose want to immediately revive a Pokemon that once brought the Galar region to the brink of destruction when humanity has 1,000 years to figure out a solution? And more importantly, why wasn't this energy crisis mentioned until the final hour of the game's story? Yes, Rose does mention in Hammerlock Stadium that his company is working to harness the power of the wishing stars, but why not mildly hint at the energy crisis there? This is gonna be horrible voice acting, but it could be as simple as Rose saying, "Our lives and society require various types of energy resources such as electricity, natural gas, and water. However, these resources are bound to be exhausted in the coming future." There, I added one sentence to his dialogue and it already helps to give the player some insight into what Rose might be trying to accomplish. There's also an additional bit of information mentioned in the Pokemon Journeys anime that helps us to get a bit of insight into Rose's past. As a child, Rose lost his father to a coal mine collapse and was pushed into poverty. As he himself states to Ash, it was Galar's prosperity that got him out of poverty and allowed him to live his current life. That explains why he wouldn't want others to go through similar experiences. If a character such as Oleana or Leon mentioned this to the player at some point, it would add a layer of nobility to Rose's motives. After all, what is he to gain from solving an energy crisis 1,000 years in the future? He and multiple generations after him will pass living comfortable lives. That's what makes me believe that his concerns come from a place of genuine care for the future. A future so far away that most others can't even imagine it. When it comes to the question of why Rose was in such a hurry to solve a problem that is a millennium away, there are a few lines of dialogue that help explain Rose's character. Now, I don't want you to get the wrong idea here. By bringing these up, am I trying to say that Rose is inherently an impatient little piece of shit? Absolutely. But that's exactly the point. It's quite in line with Rose's character to get impatient and try to get things done immediately. Although in this particular case, his attitude really hurts his character. I mean, it's not like Leon flat out refused to help the chairman with his plan. He literally said, bro, like, I know you want to do this tomorrow and all, but we have 1,000 years. Can you like just wait for an hour and like watch my match?
No.
The most important aspect of an effective anti-villain, at least in my opinion, is that the viewer can understand his or her actions to at least a slight degree. But with Rose, it's like, bro, how hard was it to wait a couple of hours? This is one of the biggest problems people have with Rose, and they're justified in thinking so. This is the point where a character who could have been the most interesting and realistic villain in the series completely fell apart. If we can just tweak this climax of Pokemon Sword and Shield without changing much narratively, I think Chairman Rose can become a much better villain, and the story of these games overall can also be drastically improved. And that's what I'm going to do now. Everything before this point stays the same, except with bits of subtle hints pointing towards the possibility that Rose could in fact be the bad guy. Also, side note, if you hear dogs barking outside, that's because there's dogs barking outside, so just ignore that. Anyway, let's begin with the part where your first battle with Leon is interrupted by Chairman Rose on the screen. Here, Rose's dialogue is questionable to say the least. Yeah, needless to say, we're scrapping this entire segment. Instead of the match being interrupted by Rose's broadcast, the match is interrupted by the beam of light caused by Eternatus' power. Amidst the panic, Leon gets a call from Sonia saying that several new power spots have started forming and Pokemon have started Dynamaxing across the region. The player... What is this dog up to? Shut up! The player and Leon rush to the stadium's hallway where they meet up with not only Hop but also Marnie and Bede. That's right, these two, they deserve more screen time. Leon lets the rest of the group in on the situation and says something along the lines of, again, terrible voice acting, I didn't think he would get so impatient. Why today? Why now? Did the chairman really succeed in bringing back the darkest day? Well, it can't be helped. I failed to convince him and I take full responsibility as a champion. I'm first gonna make sure the civilians of Galar are safe, and then I might need to have a word or two with the chairman. He asks the group to stay at the stadium and help with the evacuation. As Leon leaves, Hop expresses his concerns about the darkest day and says that they can't just sit idle. He suggests that if 3,000 years ago 2 Pokemon stopped the darkest day, then maybe they should head to the Slumbering Weald and see if those Pokemon are there. Hop asks Marnie and Bede to handle the situation at the stadium while the player and Hop head off for the Slumbering Weald. And you find the rusted sword and shield as in the original story. I'm just too lazy to change any of that. As you reach Motorstoke City, you encounter yet another Dynamax Pokemon right in front of the stadium. Once you defeat it and enter the stadium, you're confronted by Oleana, but instead of asking for help like she did in the original, she once again warns you not to interfere with Rose's plan, saying that the chairman is doing everything for the future of Galar. She challenges the player to a battle, after which the player can advance to the underground plant where Chairman Rose is waiting for them. And with that refined build-up, we're finally ready for a true final villain battle.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
Okay. This is not cool. This is definitely not cool. A final villain can't have a team that you can just sweep with a single move. So yeah, he can still have a steel type team, but it needs to be a team that's worthy of this epic battle music. Maybe I'd switch out one of his Pokemon for Excadrill, one out for Steelix Skarmory, and one for Aggron. Hell, I'd be pretty spooked if I had to battle an Aggron with that music playing in the background. After that, we get a cool cutscene where the capsule behind the chairman starts cracking and Eternatus breaks out. Rose managed to stall you until Eternatus' revival was completed. He says something along the lines of, "See that, young trainer? Right in front of us, it's the future of Galar." After which, Eternatus breaks through the power plant and heads to the roof of the building. After which, the player and Hop head off to the rooftop and the scene with Eternatus plays out, except with Leon just not being there. Throughout the story, Leon handles most of the issues, telling the player not to get concerned about such things. So it would be cool if the player and Hop manage to capture Eternatus before Leon can even arrive on the scene. And that pretty much wraps up Chairman Rose's arc. As for what happens after, I'd guess Leon shows up and praises the two of you for saving the day. Rose just turns himself in like he did in the original story for causing all the damage that he did, but also believing that he fulfilled his role to save the future of Galar. Again, we didn't change much of Sword and Shield's lore, and it would be difficult to make Chairman Rose a perfect villain without doing so. Like I said in the start, Rose is like an embodiment of a lot of the problems inherent in these games, and fixing all of that would take like actual effort. But that also means that all Pokemon Sword and Shield as Pokemon titles and Chairman Rose as a Pokemon villain needed was just a bit of polish here and there. And I hope through some of the character changes I made to Rose today, I was able to make Pokemon Sword and Shield story overall a tiny bit better than it was. Anyway, thanks for watching guys. I just wanted to say I am quite new to this format of videos, so if you do have any constructive criticism or anything you'd like to add on, feel free to leave it in the comments. That being said though, if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content in the future. Anyway, that's it from me. Again, thanks for being here and yeah, bye.